In the long history of human thought, one single event ignited a philosophical revolution. It wasn't a great battle, or a political coup. It was the unjust death of one man. This is the story of Plato, the Athenian noble who became the intellectual heir to a martyr, and went on to define the very course of Western civilization. Plato was born around 428 BC, into one of Athens' most powerful families. Originally named Aristotle, he was destined for a career in politics, a path virtually guaranteed by his aristocratic birth. But his entire world shifted when he encountered an unkempt, shoeless street philosopher named Socrates. Socrates became Plato's master, his teacher, and his guide. For years, Plato witnessed the profound power of Socratic questioning, a method that peeled back layers of ignorance to reveal deeper truths. But in 399 BC, the Athenian democracy deemed that power a threat. Socrates was put on trial, found guilty of corrupting the youth, and sentenced to death by drinking hemlock. The execution of his beloved teacher was a seismic shock. It shattered Plato's faith in the political systems of his day. How could a supposedly just democracy condemn its wisest citizen to death? Disillusioned, Plato fled Athens, utterly convinced that any society not governed by truth and reason was doomed to moral failure. This pivotal moment didn't just end Plato's political ambitions. It launched his true life's mission, to design a society where a good and wise person could not only live, but also lead. Plato spent the next decade traveling, absorbing knowledge from the great minds of Egypt and Italy, but all his learning was channeled into answering the fundamental question his master, Socrates, had posed. What is the perfect, unchanging definition of virtue? His answer was a radical and enduring concept that would echo through the centuries: the theory of forms. Plato argued that the world we perceive with our senses, the world of chairs, trees, and people, is not the real world. It's merely an imperfect, fleeting shadow of a higher, eternal reality, the world of forms. In this perfect, non-physical realm reside the ideal blueprints for everything we see. There is a perfect form of a chair, a perfect form of a tree, and most importantly, perfect forms of abstract concepts like justice, beauty, and the ultimate form that illuminates all others, the form of the good. To make this mind-bending idea easier to grasp, Plato gave us one of the most famous metaphors in all of philosophy: the allegory of the cave. Imagine a group of people who have been chained inside a dark cave their entire lives, facing a blank wall. Behind them, a fire burns, and puppeteers cast shadows on the wall. For these prisoners, the shadows are not just shadows. They are reality itself. The philosopher, Plato suggests, is like a prisoner who breaks free from the chains, escapes the cave, and for the first time, sees the true light of the sun, the form of the good. Dazzled by this revelation, the philosopher understands the shadows for what they are. And, crucially, they have a duty to return to the darkness of the cave to try and free the others, even if they are met with resistance and ridicule. This simple, powerful story is the key to understanding Plato's entire political vision. When Plato finally returned to Athens, he didn't run for office. Instead, in 387 BC, he founded a school he called the Academy, which is widely considered the very first university in Western history. Its mission wasn't just to teach facts, but to create a new kind of leader, the philosopher king. Plato channeled all his political frustration and philosophical insight into his most famous work, the dialogue known as the Republic. This book is an ambitious blueprint for a perfectly just state, built on the idea that society should mirror the structure of the individual human soul. He argued the soul has three parts: our appetites, driven by desire; our spirit, driven by honor and courage; and our reason, driven by the pursuit of truth. So, Plato's ideal state also has three classes. First, the workers, who represent the appetites and handle the economic production of the state. Second, the auxiliaries, or soldiers, who embody spirit and are responsible for defense. And finally, at the very top, the guardians, or rulers, who represent reason and are tasked with governance. Plato's most radical conclusion was that this state should be ruled by philosopher kings. These are not your typical politicians. They are individuals who have spent decades in rigorous training studying logic, ethics, and mathematics, till they can fully grasp the form of the good. And here, the controversial part. To ensure their decisions are based purely on objective truth, and not personal gain, these rulers must live without private property, personal wealth, or even traditional family ties. Plato had zero faith in democracy, believing it was too easily swayed by emotional appeals from what he called sweet shop owners, who promise pleasure instead of what is truly good. His ideal state was a demanding, and too many, a chilling aristocracy of the mind. Plato spent the rest of his long life teaching at his academy. His most brilliant student was a young man named Aristotle, who would eventually challenge his master's ideas. Aristotle favored empirical observation of the physical world over Plato's abstract forms. This intellectual tension between the master and his student, between idealism and empiricism, has been the engine driving Western philosophy for over 2 millennia. The 20th century philosopher, Alfred North Whitehead, famously wrote that the safest general characterization of the European philosophical tradition is that it consists of a series of footnotes to Plato. His influence is simply inescapable. The very structure of a modern university, the concept of a separation of powers, and the way we debate morality, justice and truth, it all traces back to the wealthy Athenian who witnessed the death of his master and decided he could redesign the world. Plato never became a political leader in the traditional sense, but with his pen, he shaped more governments, more religions, and more minds than any king in history. He dedicated his life to searching for the ultimate truth in a higher world of forms. So, here's a question for you. What aspect of our modern world do you think comes closest to one of Plato's ideals? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you were inspired by the man who built the first university, please hit that like button and subscribe for more foundational stories from history. Thank you for watching.